All right, 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 6 through 23. Last week we covered the first 5 verses in which David was hid in the cave of Adullam, that place of refuge, that tomb that turned into a womb of new life. But he is called, and part of that calling out was the prophetic voice of Gad calling him out of the tomb, back into Judah, into Hereth, that forest which means heart of the land. And so here David is standing publicly, no longer hidden as a kind of felon, but he is standing publicly. And so now we continue our story. As we have had this Exodus motif, as David is going through his Exodus, he is now in the wilderness period. He is going to come now to the Idumean part of the Exodus motif. We have seen how David is growing in his trust in the Lord, and now we're going to see the opposite, Saul's growth in his wickedness. And so, if you'd please stand for the reading of God's Word, 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 6 through 23. Then Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered. Now Saul was sitting in Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height, with his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing around him. And Saul said to his servants who were standing around him, "Hear now, O Benjamites, will the son of Jesse also give to all of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? For all of you have conspired against me, so that there is no one who reveals in my ear when my son cuts a covenant with the son of Jesse. And there is none of you who is sorry for me, or reveals in my ear that my son has caused my servant to rise up against me, to lie in ambush, as it is this day." Then Doeg the Edomite, who was standing by the servants of Saul, said, "I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. And he asked of Yahweh for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath, the Philistine." And the king sent someone to summon Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's household, the priests who were in Nob, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, "Listen now, son of Ahitub." And he answered, "Here I am, my lord." Saul then said to him, "Why have you and the son of Jesse conspired against me, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have asked of God on his behalf, so that he would rise up against me by lying in ambush, as it is this day?" Then Ahimelech answered the king and said, "And who among all your servants is as faithful as David, even the king's son-in-law, who is captain over your guard, and is honored in your house? Did I just begin to ask of God on his behalf today? Far be it from me. Do not let the king impute anything to his servant, or to any of the household of my father, for your servant knows nothing, small or great, of this whole affair." But the king said, "You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's household." And the king said to the guards who were standing by him, "Turn around and put the priests of Yahweh to death, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew that he was fleeing and did not reveal it in my ears." But the servants of the king were not willing to put forth their hand to fall upon the priests of Yahweh. Then the king said to Doeg, "You turn around and attack the priests." And Doeg the Edomite turned around and attacked the priests, and he put to death that day 85 men who wore the linen ephod. So he struck Nob, the city of the priests, with the edge of the sword, both men and women, infants and nursing babies, also oxen, donkeys, and sheep he struck with the edge of the sword. But one son of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priests of Yahweh. Then David said to Abiathar, "I knew on that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, 'It is I who have turned against every person in your father's household.' Stay with me. Do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life, for you are safe with me." May the Lord bless the reading of his word. You may be seated. Our story begins, the setting here in verse 6. Saul heard that David and the men who were with him had been discovered. Now Saul was sitting in Gibeah under the tamarisk tree on the height with his spear in his hand, and all his servants were standing around him. He is sitting in Gibeah. This is his fortress area in the land of Benjamin. He is in a royal court. That is where he is seated. That's why he's got his counselors all around him. This is a royal court. He is on the height, we're told, a mountain-like place. This is a place for not only judicial but theological judgment. All right? This is where these judgments take place. There's a reason why Zion is called his holy hill. It is the place for theological judgment. Saul, we shall see, is engaged not in a godly judgment, but in an idolatrous judgment. He is also situated under a tamarisk tree. These trees aren't too frequent, but if a king or a fella is sitting under a tree and making judgments, this is a picture of a king. Frequently it's under a palm tree, but here it's a tamarisk tree. And probably because it's Saul, and he's a little bit of an exception to the kings of Israel, being that he is of the tribe of Benjamin and not Judah, that might be part of the reason why he's not under the normal tree, but under this unique tree. The other place that we see a tamarisk tree is when Abraham planted a tamarisk tree just after Isaac is born, just after Hagar is sent out with Ishmael. He plants this tree in this covenant that he makes with the Philistines, Ahimelech and Phicol. All right, so Abraham planted this when sojourning with the Philistines. I think this is in connection then to Saul, who is, while at war with the Philistines, is more and more taking on the picture of the Philistines. There are some of us here who have not been with us from the very beginning of 1 Samuel, so I will do a little, very brief recap here to remind us that Saul is the giant of Israel. He was the one who was meant to go out against Goliath, giant v. giant, all right? He is the one who is head and shoulders above every other person in Israel. He is also the one that we see here with the spear in his hand. Goliath is also the one with the spear in his hand. These two were meant to go to war with each other, but instead David goes because Saul is too paralyzed to deal with the Philistine threat. He has now become the Philistine threat, chasing after God's people, defiling, as we'll see in this very passage, defiling God's house. Now, the author of Samuel keeps bringing this point up whenever we see Saul, that the spear is in his hand. The spear is in his hand. The author of Samuel wants us to realize how close this is to Saul, that this spear never seems to depart from him. We might imagine him sleeping with this spear in his hand. He doesn't want to get rid of it. Why? Because it is the emblem, it is the picture of his power, his rule. Saul is tightly gripping onto his power. So that is our scene set. The story plays as follows. Saul said to his servants who were standing around him, "Hear now, O Benjamites, will the son of Jesse also give to all of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you all commanders of thousands and commanders of hundreds? For all of you have conspired against me, so that there is no one who reveals in my ear when my son cuts a covenant with the son of Jesse, and there is none of you who is sorry for me, or reveals in my ear that my son has caused my servant to rise up against me, to lie in ambush as it is this day." He says, will this son of Jesse give you fields and vineyards? I want you to pay attention again throughout this passage how Saul engages in naming convention. All right, he refuses to call him David. The beloved is the meaning of his name. He refuses to call him the beloved. He refuses to call him David even as his own son. Remember, Saul twice adopts David into his house. He adopts him before he makes him his son-in-law. So he's already part of Saul's household before he marries him off to his daughter. Then he marries him off to his daughter. So he's twice the son of Saul, but he refuses to acknowledge that adoption. He refuses to acknowledge that relationship. And so it is always that son of Jesse, that one that other. He is maligning him. And we will see that again with Ahimelech later in this passage, and not referring to him as the high priest of God. But will this son of Jesse give you fields and vineyards? Will he promote your people as elders? What is this all speaking of? Well, first of all, it's speaking about what Samuel prophesied, right? If you accept this king, a king like the nations, here's all the things that are going to happen to you. He's going to rob you. He's going to take all these things from you, and he is going to develop all of these plans without your concern. You want a king that will serve you, but rather he shall serve himself instead. And so all this is coming out, right? He's saying, what's going on here? I took people's lands and I gave them to you, and now this is how you're treating me? This is the payment I get in response? He's bribing them over favors and rule in the first. The stolen land will not remain theirs if this son of Jesse becomes king. So you should probably help me out. You should help me out against this David, because if David becomes king, you're going to lose all that land that I gave you. Oh, you know how you're all the elders, how you're in charge of the Sanhedrin? That's what that commanders of thousands, commanders of hundreds is in reference to, Exodus chapter 18. You want to be the rulers of these people? Well, you're not going to rule, Benjamin, when David becomes the king on the throne. And so, what does this reveal of the heart of this king, this tyrant? That the concern is for self-interest and not justice. God's people in power, in the magistrate, should be concerned about justice and not self-interest. And we can see how those two things can be conflated, can't we? How there are those in recent time, his name is escaping me, unfortunately, but part of the Black Lives Matter movement, who they were saying, we want to bring about justice, we want to bring about justice, but it was all about self-interest. I'll use, because I can't remember the pastor's name, I'll use the actual organizers of Black Lives Matter. You know, that they took all that money, the donation money that was supposed to be going to, whatever justice things, and what did they do? They bought mansions for themselves. Is that justice? It's not justice. That's self-interest. It's self-interest. And so I'm not picking on them in particular, because we see them that abused across the board. I just picked them because they're the easiest one that come to mind for me. I'm sure we could go through a million different political movements who claim to be going out for justice, claim to be fighting for justice, may even use the Bible and Amos, right? Let justice roll down like waters, and then we look at their bank accounts and they're funding extravagant lifestyles when they claim that this money was going to go towards justice. And none of those people have been held accountable, by the way. And they continue not to be. Why won't they be? Because the judges are also those who are concerned about their self-interest. And so the whole system is corrupt. We may feel very much like the children of Israel in this day. A complete desecration of our religious system and a complete corruption of our political system. We see it both. Now he says, and this part should read a little bit funny to us when he says, and I tried to do it with the expression of my voice, but it may not be coming across. There is none of you who is sorry for me, or reveals in my ear that my son has caused my servant to rise up against me to lie in ambush as it is this day. Nobody's sorry for me. Right, that's kind of an embarrassing statement from a king, is it not? I mean, that's really the self-pity and self-loathing there. Why don't you feel bad for me? I'll even go so far as to say this is a rather effeminate kind of claim here from Saul, to say, why don't you feel bad for me? You should feel bad for me. Aren't you my brothers? Paranoia has completely overtaken Saul, and now he's goading for approval. Come on, you need to approve me. He's appealing to their basest instinct. He's appealing to empathy. Again, something that has come up recently, a discussion of toxic empathy, in which empathy is being weaponized to browbeat people into evil things, into evil deeds, into approving evil lifestyles, to approve wickedness. This empathy is being employed. And so we see Saul here masterfully executing it. Don't you feel sorry for me? I'm your brother. I'm from your tribe. Why don't you feel bad? Don't you see that they're trying to take the crown from me? Why don't you feel bad for me? And so now, who has Saul accused of treachery? Jonathan, now all of Benjamin, and David have betrayed him. But notice something interesting. Saul has changed who is actually behind all of the events. Remember, it was David. David was the one after his crown. David was the one orchestrating all these things. But it's actually changed here. He says, "There's none of you who is sorry for me or reveals in my ear that my son has caused my servant to rise up against me to lie in ambush as it is this day." Jonathan is now the one Saul is accusing of being the mastermind behind all of these events. Jonathan is the one who has led David to this secular apostasy. And so Saul is overcome by self-pity. This is going to play out throughout the rest of this book, even as it has led up to this point. This dynamic between fathers and sons is an essential theme. I cannot stress that enough. An essential thing of the book of Samuel. We begin with a mother praying for a son. We come to the middle in which David laments Jonathan, and in particular about his lament, he highlights Jonathan's love and faithfulness to his father, despite his father's, what we read here. And remember, if you haven't been with us and you don't know this part, the last time Saul and Jonathan were in a story together, Saul threw a spear at him. All right, so they're not on good terms. But Jonathan still loves him, and he's still faithful to his father. He's going to go out into battle with his father at the very end. So that's the middle of the book. And the rest of the book plays out with David and his issues with his sons. Now the dynamic of who's the faithful one has flipped. Now it's the sons who are being faithless, as it was at the beginning of the book. In the middle, it's the sons who are faithful, right? So that's the dynamic that's playing out. Saul, I said, is overcome by self-pity. He's lost all charismatic power here. He is no longer ruling by I can't think of another term than this, but you might understand me with this sort of modern vernacular here. But he no longer has this aura about him that people are going to follow him because he's this charismatic leader. No, that aura is completely lost. He has none of that left. He is devoid of it. And so what happens? Again, this is a picture of tyrants, and we should be able to track this, right? There's a reason this is in the Bible, and there's a reason we are being instructed by the Holy Spirit to notice and pick up on these things. When a leader has lost this charismatic power, aura, if you will, and he begins self-loathing and indulging in self-pity, he takes everything personally. Everything is a personal attack against him. He has no charity whatsoever for anyone. He has no charity for his son. He has no charity for David. David went to that cave not because he's trying to escape me, who's trying to kill him. He's trying to kill me. That's why he went to that cave. He's trying to kill me. And so, how does Saul see the nation now? How do tyrants see their nation? The nation exists to serve Saul. You see that? My, me. That's Saul's complaint. He has nothing to say about the nation. He has nothing to say about God. He has nothing to say about the priests. Me, my. That is his concern. Why did the people want Saul in the first place? Samuel, go tell God we want a king, because we want a king who's going to fight our battles. What did Samuel tell them in response? God will give you this king like the nations as you desire, but he won't fight your battles. He'll fight his. And so we see it. Guys, the Philistines haven't just disappeared. They're still here. They're still in the land. They're still engaging in military combat in Israel. What is Saul the king doing? Is he going after the Philistines? No, he's chasing around David. He has got his military members with him, his commanders, his legions, and they're going after David, not the Philistines, who again are in the land. The nation has come to serve Saul, not Saul to serve the nation. Well, this self-loathing, all of these appeals finally reaches Doeg the Edomite, and so he responds. In verse 9. Then Doeg the Edomite, who was standing by the servants of Saul, said, I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub. And he asked of Yahweh for him, gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine. So, Doeg, note, he is the Edomite, meaning he is of what? Edom, who is who? Esau, right? The brother of Jacob, who tried to slay him. He was like a Cain. He wasn't as successful as Cain, right? Jacob doesn't die. But he is a Cain-like character. He is a brother pursuer. And so Saul pursuing his brother David. It's really Saul who is the Esau character here. And we'll see how his hand is extended through Doeg momentarily. But we see that Doeg mentions that Ahimelech gave to David both provisions and Goliath's sword. That's the food of fellowship. He also inquired for God on his behalf. And then this weapon of war. Now we noted last time, or not last time, 2 weeks ago, actually I think it was 3 weeks ago now, that when David was in Nob, he lied to Ahimelech, and we said that this was not a sinful lie. He was not bearing false witness, he was lying in order to protect Ahimelech. So we would say it this way, David spares information to spare Ahimelech. But we see here that Doeg also spares some information. But it is not in favor of Ahimelech. It's in favor to destroy Ahimelech, to destroy David. He withholds information, doesn't he? He withholds the fact that David told Ahimelech that he was on the king's business. So then Ahimelech is doing this on behalf of Saul. That's what Ahimelech believes, anyways, because that's what David told him. He withholds that information so that he might be charged. That is to say, there's a sense here that Doeg might be influenced by a couple of motives here. I do think there's that Edomite motive of hate towards Jacob, hate towards God's people. Though he's pretending to be an Israelite, we saw that he was keeping the Sabbath there in Nob. He was detained by the Lord, it says. But I think there's also an element here in which Doeg's probably trying to save his own life. Because what has Saul just accused everyone of? Treachery. They're all traitors. And now he's looking for a scapegoat. Doeg has one. I got one for you. Here's someone we can put all the blame on and kill. Right? That's another thing that what do tyrannical governments like to do? Find scapegoats. And that is nothing new. I think one of my favorite ones there in history, you may or may not know, is the Samaritan issue. The issue between the Jews and Samaritans. Before the time Jesus comes on the scene, they're killing each other, right? They're constantly causing problems and a headache for Rome because the Jews and the Samaritans are killing each other. And so, what does Rome do? All right, now there's a new king over you guys. Herod, an Edomite. He's a scapegoat, right? Well, what do Jews and Samaritans hate more than each other? An Edomite. So let's put him in charge, and now they'll deal with him rather than each other. And that's how governments like to do these sorts of things. Another example in the Gospels is the man who's demon-possessed, the demoniac. The town sends Jesus away after he sends Legion out of the man. Why? Well, Jesus does a couple things to that community, doesn't he? One, he destroys their illegal contraband, right? He kills all their pigs. But two, he's removed their scapegoat. What did the community have the ability to blame all their problems on? This demon. The demoniac in particular, right? We can blame all of our problems on this demoniac. That's the issue. Well, if Jesus gets rid of the demons, who are we left with? Ourselves. Right? Now we have to deal with our own evil. Nobody wants that. So we want to keep the demons around. We want to keep the scapegoats around. And we say, Jesus, go away to a new town. Disturb them, not us any longer. So Doeg has provided Saul his scapegoat. We continue, verse 11 through 13. The king sent someone to summon Ahimelech the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's household, the priests who were in Nob. And all of them came to the king. And Saul said, listen now, son of Ahitub. And he answered, here I am, my lord. Saul then said to him, why have you and the son of Jesse conspired against me, in that you have given bread and a sword, and asked of God on his behalf, so that he would rise up against me by lying in ambush, as it is this day? So the priests of Nob are summoned. It's not just Ahimelech that is summoned, but the priests in total. But he is summoned and not summoned as a priest, is he? He does not greet him as the high priest. And he's second in all of Israel. He is second in all of Israel. And he does not give him any honor, but refers to him rather as the son of Ahitub, not as the high priest. Yet, note how Ahimelech responds. Here I am, my lord. He doesn't return evil for evil here. The high priest subjects himself to the jurisdiction of the king where it is appropriate. Where it is appropriate. He is willing to hear out the king's charges against him and to respond. He has no concern here because he believes that everything is all right. He hasn't done anything wrong, right? So he can subject himself to the scrutiny of this king. So it is that while pastors in the church have a kind of authority over the civil magistrate, so do the civil magistrate have a kind of authority over the ecclesiastical powers. There is some overlap there. It is not one or the other. And that's been a historical debate, hasn't it? In which you have the Catholics who believe that the church is over the state. And then you have the Orthodox and even the Anglicans who believe that it is the church who is over the state. Right? That's why the queen, or now it's the king is the defender of the faith. Not plural, faith, singular. He is the defender of the faith. What faith? The Protestant, Anglican faith. That is what he is the defender of. He is the head of the Church of England. That's their view. I say there's something a little bit more complex here going on. That there is a head of the church, namely Jesus Christ, and then his servants, and that there is a head of the secular government, namely Jesus Christ, and then his servants. So they have a similar yet distinct role. Namely, that the magistrates, as we read from Isaiah, are meant to feed the church. They're meant to take care of the church. That is their job. Now he says that, Saul says, that Ahimelech and David, the son of Jesse, are involved in a conspiracy. Saul supposes he has intelligence, but only possesses perverted assumptions, right? He believes he has this intelligence that David is laying out there to kill me, right? And again, this is another thing that we can see play out in time and in history, right? Where kings come across intelligence and they act upon that intelligence, and many times to save their own lives and for good, right? But here it's not for good. He thinks he has this intelligence, but actually he just has this perverted assumption, and so he assails upon this. Beloved, the church throughout time and to this day, and may yet in the near future, be accused of treason against the state. Like Ahithophel later on, when they've come to take her off the throne, who does not belong there. She is a usurper to the throne. But when they come to take her off the throne, what does she cry out? Treason! Treason! So it is that when time may come that we have to remove certain wicked leaders, they will cry out, treason! Treason! There may be some value to what they are claiming. Treason against their usurpation. Treason against their office, which they have wrongly stolen. And so the church can be accused of treason. This happened throughout the COVID years. Not necessarily here in Florida. Oh, actually, no, that's not true. Down in, Tampa, right? A pastor was arrested because he continued to have open meetings. And incredibly, this was after he got permission from the sheriff, who then went and arrested him, that this happened. But far worse, draconian rules across the country, even in Canada in particular is what I'm thinking of. Those Canadian brothers who were arrested and put into harsh confinement because they continued to meet. And they were considered what? Traitors. Traitors to the state. Why were they traitors? Because they weren't loving their neighbor and doing exactly what the Levitical priesthood was telling them to do, which is the opposite of what the Levitical laws tell us to do. You're supposed to quarantine the sick, not the healthy. So they got it backwards. But we live by some kind of Levitical law, don't we? What Levitical law are we going to live by is the question. The state has their Levitical law. God has his Levitical law. I'm going to take his law over their law. As Peter and the apostles swore before man, we shall rather choose to obey God than man. And he says that he has taken this bread, this sword, and this revelation from God in order to ambush him. And this is another element of tyrannical reign, which is called projection. Right? He's projecting. The charge against David and Ahimelech is actually true of Saul. Saul is the one that's hunting down David. David's not hunting Saul. But that's what he's come up with. That's what he's declaring. So it's all projection. So the story continues and takes quite a terrible turn. Then Ahimelech the king answered the king and said, "And who among all your servants is as faithful as David, even the king's son-in-law, who is captain over your guard and is honored in your house? Did I just begin to ask of God on his behalf today? Far be it from me. Do not let the king impute anything to his servant or to any of the household of my father, for your servant knows nothing small or great of this whole affair." Who but David is most faithful to Saul? Saul, why are you worried about David? There's confusion here for Ahimelech, isn't there? Wouldn't you be confused if you were in Ahimelech's position, especially if you don't know the whole story that's going on here? Wait a minute, Saul. You promoted him to the chief of your commanders. You're the one that married him off to your daughter. You're the one that made him your chiefest servant. I'm confused. I thought I could trust him because you gave him all this trust. You gave him all these things. I am falling after you. Ahimelech's point here, in part, is in this service to David, I was attempting to serve you. But we've seen that that's an issue for Saul, isn't it? Why does Saul get angry with David? Because remember, this didn't just come out of nowhere. This has been happening over time, hasn't it? Saul has recovered his relationship in part with David several times. Jonathan has talked him down from murder, and then Saul said, "Yep, by God, I will never kill David," or try to kill David, obviously. And then, like a verse later, he's trying to kill David. But he was talked down. He was talked down. What always incited Saul to chase after David again? David goes out and does something for Saul. He does something good for Saul. He faithfully serves Saul, and this entices him to anger. Why? Because he is jealous, envious of David. This is how jealousy affects our hearts, beloved. This is how envy affects our hearts. We turn to hatred when those who love us are serving us, are generous and kind and loving to us. We turn that into evil. So the prophet says, right? Woe to those who call good evil and evil good. And the Proverbs, which says the king who hearkens to lies, all his servants are become wicked. That is, we might read that and understand it. In Saul's case, they've become wicked in the king's eyes. David is now wicked. Jonathan is now wicked. But we've read of David and we've read of Jonathan. Are they wicked men? No. No, they're virtuous men. They are men that we ought to emulate as they emulate Christ. So it continues. King said, verse 16, "You shall surely die, Ahimelech, you and all your father's household." Saul commands Nob's death, all the priests. The person of Saul is viciously and brutally defended. Why? Because the image of the king is the ultimate blasphemy against the state idol. Saul sees himself as God here, and so must protect his image. He must protect the state's image. And so he performs this high-handed execution, right? He doesn't answer the appeal that Ahimelech gives. He gives no objection to the objection. He gave Ahimelech his peace. Very good. Now you will all die. There's no answer. I think anyone who's listening to this can see the fault in Saul's words, his charge, especially after Ahimelech's defense. And so we see. The king said to his guards, who were standing by him, "Turn around and put the priests of Yahweh to death, because their hand also is with David, and because they knew that he was fleeing and did not reveal it in my ears," or uncover my ears to this. But the servants of the king were not willing to put forth their hands to fall upon the priests of Yahweh. The servants are unwilling to do it. And so, what happens? He turns to Doeg, right? The Edomite. So the Benjamites, the Israelites, they are unwilling to put to death these priests of the Lord. Again, I try to imagine you're one of those Benjamites and you hear that. How are you going to feel about that? Your king just said it as plainly as that. He gives them their office. These are the priests belonging to your God. Kill them. That is his command. They can't do it. Their conscience is too pricked. Here Saul says these words, and he is denied a moment to reflect upon what he said, and turns and finds another way to execute this godless command. Tyrants will progressively become reliant on foreign powers. Why? Because they will hate, they will push aside their own people, their own kin. They're trying to go after their own people. And so, their own people don't want to do it. So what must they do? Get foreign powers to do it for them. So they bring in foreign powers like Doeg, like Edomites, to come and destroy. This extreme and unlawful command is doing what? It's supporting Saul's self-loathing and pity. Right? He's telling them to do this extreme thing and then says, "Why don't you feel bad for me?" And then they don't do this thing. What's it confirming to Saul? They really don't feel bad for me. It's a vicious, vicious cycle of self-confirmation. Well, he turns to Doeg. Doeg, you turn around and attack the priests. Doeg has no problem Doeg the Edomite turned around and attacked the priests, and he put to death that day 85 men who wore the linen ephod. He didn't stop there. He struck Nob, the city of the priests, with the edge of the sword, both men and women, infants and nursing babies, also oxen, donkeys, and sheep. He struck with the edge of the sword. Doeg the Edomite is fulfilling that role of Edom throughout the Bible, which is taking advantage of Israel's destruction. That's what I guess Connor here. I don't think anyone else was here when I preached through Obadiah. But that's what the book of Obadiah is all about, right? The Idumeans who hated Israel and gloated over them and ransacked them as Babylon destroyed Jerusalem. What did Edom do? They went in and stole. They went in and took some and made them slaves. They gloated over Israel, and so God promises he will judge them. But this is Herod and the Idumeans as well. Later in Jesus' time, the descendants of Esau are those who in AD 69 slaughter all the priests. The Zealots let them in. The Zealots let the Idumeans in so that they can kill all the priests. There's actually an interesting connection there, because while this is a gross evil that's taking place by Saul and Doeg the Edomite, this is also accomplishing God's promise against the house of Eli. Right? Did God not promise against the house of Eli, which this is, Ahimelech is third in line from Eli? He promised, this house will be destroyed, and I will destroy all of your descendants except one I will leave to weep over the destruction of your house. And we see that, right? Abiathar. So this is taking place. Two things can happen at the same time. Evil in the heart of man and a good of God in keeping his promise. As he destroyed Israel with Assyria. As he destroyed Judah with Babylon. As he destroyed Jerusalem with Rome. Now, I want us to pay attention to that, verse 19. He struck Nob, the city of the priests, with the edge of the sword, both men and women, infants and nursing babies, also oxen, donkeys, and sheep. He struck with the edge of the sword. What is this? This is the ban, right? This is the ban. Who was Saul supposed to execute the ban against? The Amalekites. Who is Saul executing the ban against? God's priests. This is an unholy war against the Lord. And I want us to reflect again on this point because we see it so frequent amongst us today. False morality. False morality. Mercy for the wicked, cruelty for the righteous. It's a false morality. I was reading a post online this past week of a man gloating. Well, actually, it may have been a woman, but it's online, so you never know. But they were gloating about how much they enjoyed the grief of parents who lose children. They were gloating about it. And then there was someone who responded, who works in the hospital, who said, I totally agree with you. I enjoy when I get to see parents grieving over their loss of their young children, specifically young children. Now, those same people will turn around and tell you, Christian, that you're backwards, that you're evil, because you stand against what is immoral. It's a false morality. They enjoy death. They love to gloat over death. But then, when you say the wicked should be punished, they'll be the first ones to say, we shouldn't have, the death penalty is barbaric. How could, you're so backwards. You're so 16th century. You're so draconian. How could you think that the death penalty is good for society? God's law says, put the murderer to death. It does not say rejoice over those whose young infants die. It's a false morality. Saul was happy to show mercy to Amalek, who attacked Israel in the wilderness when they were weak. Oh, I'll show mercy. No, you were supposed to destroy them. God commanded you to destroy them. But these priests of Nob, well, I'll kill every last one of them, and their children, and their donkeys, and their oxen. I will burn this whole city to the ground. Why does Saul feel confident in doing this, beloved? Because he can't catch David. So what have tyrants done throughout church history? They can't catch Jesus. They can't get a hold of him. So who do they bite instead? The serpent bites the bride instead. He attacks the church instead. The woman, the bride, is defenseless, weak against the serpent, and so she is attacked. The beloved will come back, and he will restore, and he will undo all the evil that the serpent does. But the serpent longs to destroy the bridegroom, but he can't. So he goes after the bride instead. Now, as a last note on the ban, the ban, according to Deuteronomy, is acceptable within Israel's borders only against an apostasy that a city makes. So what is Saul doing here? I've already said it before. Saul is making himself God. Right? If he is performing this ban against Nob because Nob has impugned his character, his image, his name, then he is God to perform this ban. Well, we come to the end of our passage this morning. But the one son of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priests of Yahweh. Then David said to Abiathar, I knew on that day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, it is I who have turned against every person in your father's household. Stay with me. Do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life, for you are safe with me. Abiathar is fourth of the line of Eli. That should be alarming to Abiathar, right? Because what does the second commandment say? Cursed to the third and fourth generation. He's the last one. And he is. I hate to spoil it for you, but the Bible's been out for over 4,000 years. So, but Abiathar is killed during Solomon's reign because he's a traitor to David's line. So the cursed priest's line is coming to the end. But there's still a chance for him, and there is, right? He has safety. He has this blessing and this honor while he is with the beloved. He could have repented and stayed with David, with his line, with the beloved, but he does not, and so he is destroyed ultimately. But the priesthood is now driven to David. So who does Saul have left? He's removed his greatest military commanders, David and Jonathan. He has removed the prophet, Samuel. He's got rid of all of the priests. Who does Saul have left? It's just foreign powers. It's just foreigners. That's all he has left. That's all Saul has left to rule with. He has driven away his own people in order to maintain control over his own people. Well, David confesses. I played a role in this. David here is taking on the pain of the flock. Don't we know that Jesus does that too? When the church is injured, when you individually, because you each are a little stone of that church, right? When you are hurt, that pain goes onto Christ. He takes that onto himself. I'm beginning to sound like a broken record by saying I sound like a broken record, but Saul, why are you persecuting me? Jesus says. Not the church in Damascus where you're going to attack. Why are you persecuting me? That's how Jesus sees it. He's one flesh with his bride, is he not? And so an attack upon his bride, that he will handle. We've been talking about this in Revelation, right? All blasphemies against the Son of Man, that will be forgiven. If you malign Christ's name, if you assault his honor, he'll let it go. You attack his bride, blasphemy against the Holy Spirit, oh, he'll come for you. Right? I know I gave kind of a vulgar expression of this before, and I'll repeat it again, but the idea, you're at a dinner place or a bar or something, and a guy's just hollering at you. This is mostly to the men in the crowd here, but he's hollering at you all kinds of names, and you're just supposed to ignore it, right? But the second he brings up your girl, you're standing up, right? You're going to do something about it. That's Jesus. He'll take all the slurs all day long against him, but the second you bring up his bride, he stands up. We saw that, didn't we? They were saying all kinds of blasphemies against Christ upon that cross. But when Stephen is attacked, what does Stephen see in heaven? Christ isn't seated at the right hand of the Father. He is standing at the right hand of the Father. He is actively engaged. He is doing something. And he does do something. And that something's pretty destructive too. It looks like everything being destroyed. So praise the Lord for that. We end then with this, David's promise. Stay with me, do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life, for you are safe with me. Beloved, if you join with the Lord's anointed, that is our Christ, the anointed one, if you join with the Lord, you will be safe. This is how you survive Saul's. It may not be in here. There's countless stories, again, throughout history of people gathering, hiding in the house of God, seeking sanctuary, and they lock the doors and they burn the church and burn everyone inside. It may not be here. This may not be the sanctuary. But you know what is, or who is our sanctuary? Jesus. Is he not called that very thing? And he, the Word, came down and tabernacled with us? Is he not called the sanctuary of God in heaven, in which the ark is revealed? That's where it is. And that's who it is. Jesus. Join yourselves with the Lord's anointed, for this is the only way to survive this world's Sauls. I've been saying this for several weeks. Goliaths are easy. You just go out and shoot them and they're dead. Sauls are not easy. You can't do that. You can't just go out and shoot a Saul. You're not allowed to. It's against God's law. So, there's only one way to survive through them. You go through the death of Christ, and you're raised to life in him. Our applications this morning, I have gone very long. First, do not fall victim to the manipulative tactics of tyrants. Saul is engaging in a lot here. And a lot of these can pressure us as Christians, right? One of the things we want to do as Christians is be compassionate, right? Well, what has the world done to attack us on that end? Empathy. Empathy. Make you feel bad for these people. See? You should feel bad for me. You should feel compassionate. Therefore, accept every evil thing I've ever done and continue to do. Don't fall victim to that manipulative tactic. Second, refuse to participate in the bloody works of Saul's. Well, if you've been manipulated, don't follow, all right? Don't follow. Don't listen. Don't go with him to Nob. But if you are brought that far, when he tells you to go and kill the priests of the Lord, and there are many ways in which we can kill, right? There is the one by the sword, but what does Jesus say? The one who hates his brother in his heart has slain him, right? Has committed murder. So, there are many ways to kill our brothers. Do not join in the bloody works of Saul's. I use this example all the time, so I'll use it again. But those absurd, it's hard to call them pastors, hirelings who went to secular media, New York Times, what's the other, Salon and The Atlantic, who go to those to write about how their congregations voted. You're condemning yourself. It's your flock, man. Why are you maligning your own people before the heathen. Don't. Why? Because they wanted credit with the world. They wanted reputation with the world. They wanted reputation with Saul. Don't. Refuse to participate in the bloody works of Saul's. Lastly, find solace and protection in the loving, beloved Jesus Christ. He is the only one who gets us through these things. It's not going to be strength of arms. I'm just telling you that, guys. I love you. And I love your passion and your zeal, some of you. But it's not going to be through strength of arms. If any man would have, beloved, it would have been David. Now, I think a lot about a lot of you guys in here. But truly imagining you taking on a giant with a slingshot and then cutting his head off, to me, I don't know if some of you guys would be right there ready to do that. With your guns, you might, right? Because that's a lot easier. But with a slingshot, right? If any man could have done it by the sword, David would have done it by the sword. He was the great man and warrior of God. Remember, he has slain his thousands, right? This is no, little guy who thinks he can do a lot. This is a guy who has proven he can do a lot. He has not done it by the sword. It doesn't mean he doesn't exercise the sword. He does. But only in Christ. Only in Christ. So with that, would you join me as we sing this last song? It is, I asked the Lord that I might grow. And I changed it. I swapped it out as I was thinking over the sermon. Because as we sing this, I want us to reflect. A lot of us are really quick to see ourselves as Abiathars and Davids in the text. But we have to watch out for the Sauls in our hearts. How we might be led on to envy. How we might be led on to wickedness. But this song, it concerns ourselves with that. But the song also concerns us with this. That when we are persecuted, when we are going through any kind of suffering, it doesn't have to be a persecution, it can be a sickness. The Lord has a purpose and a plan in it. So let's sing together. I ask the Lord that I might grow.